Yeah, so I'm Andrew, co-founder of HairDAO. We're a vertically integrated, hyper-efficient pharma organization whose mission is to solve hair loss. So first off, hair loss isn't considered a disease by any government organization globally, but hair loss patients very much suffer. So like if you hop into our community, you'll see like people willing to spend a lot of money to try to get rid of their pain. And then also if you look at large statistical surveys, over 20% of hair loss sufferers report depression. And given that 2 billion people suffer from hair loss today, like the numbers get high pretty quickly. But yeah, like we just said, so hair loss isn't considered a disease, which means it gets basically no public government funding. So all government agencies globally, the NIH, all of its counterparts combined give $5.4 million a year about to early stage hair loss research. And that's divided like among 10 different labs. So you basically get no scale. You basically have like 10 studies going on in 10 different parts of the world. And frankly, like a lot of the studies don't even, like hair loss isn't even their like, number one priority. Maybe they're looking at like cancer in hair cells or something of that sort. Oh yeah, and just last thing, so that just means there hasn't been a new treatment since 1997, finasteride, which is a drug if you have an enlarged prostate and has pretty severe side effects. So I personally don't take it, although I used to. But yeah, so because there's been very little traditional progress, the internet, like in a real bottom-up movement, has formed over the years. So some big YouTube channels, some big blogs, Reddit forums, and now hopefully us. So yeah, with this bottom-up community, our goal is to basically remove the need for all the middlemen today that are in science research. So when we're talking about what DSI can do, to me at least, it can get rid of middlemen and give more money to consumers and producers, which in this case are patients and researchers. What's kind of cool with us, I think because the traditional research landscape is so bare, the best researchers really are internet native patients who taught themselves the science. So that's all I'll say on that. But yeah, so the parties that I think we can disrupt, they're the universities, so the tech transfer offices, and privatizing that research instead of doing it through very inefficient, high-priced institutions. They're the journals, which I don't know if you guys know how journals work, but they're maybe the most extractive in the space. So you have to pay to submit your journal, and you have to pay per submission, so they'll keep giving you comments. So you have to keep submitting and keep paying, and then they'll charge the customer $30 an article and give none of that to the researcher. Their clinical trials, like the actual cost to run a clinical trial is about $1,500 to $2,500 a patient, just depending on the type of blood work and test you want to do. That's low, but granted, because for us, our efficacy costs are basically zero, because it's pretty easy to tell if you're losing your hair or not. So that's mostly on safety data. But if you look at the actual cost of what these trials balloon out to be, by the $1,500 to $2,500 math, a phase 2 clinical trial should by no means cost more than $250 grand, $300 grand, and instead of $6, $8, $10 million. And then the distributors, so Hims, Roe, Keeps. This is mostly a hair loss problem because it's not insured, because it's not a disease, but they are all billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, and they spend 100% of the revenue on SG&A marketing and 0% R&D. So basically, hair loss has this weird dynamic where all the money goes to distributors, which really means all the money goes to Facebook. The clinical trials are very expensive, very few get run, and then even the little early stage research that does happen, you're also getting price gouged. So it's a really, really inefficient market, and we're trying to verticalize all of it, just using patient researchers at its core.
Just to what degree do the various solutions work today? What's our knowledge? Do things work? Do they not work?
Yeah. So there's Rogaine and finasteride. Rogaine's medical name is minoxidil. So that one, if you take topically, has very, very little side effects. That's what I do. But it doesn't work that well, so it works 20% of patients. Rogaine orally works for more people, I think 30-40% of patients, but then it's a heart drug, so you would probably need to get an EKG and just monitor to make sure you're not messing with your heart. Finasteride works really, really well. It works in about 80% of patients, but it nukes this sex hormone called DHT by about 60-70%, which has all sorts of side effects in your brain. So the jury's still like on how many finasteride users experience depression, but it's probably over 5%. And then you also have a lot of sexual side effects like libido, all that sort of stuff, because this hormone is like really important for that sort of stuff too.
Got it.
So like a lot of cosmetic research involves animal models. So how does DSI like account for like these frameworks? Like how do they account for ethical treatments?
Yeah, great question. So for hair, animal models is honestly less important, just because like the joke is, and pardon my language, but this is like what the joke is, you can piss on a mouse and it will regrow hair. So like because mice hair is very different than human hair, it grows in waves, whereas like our hair are all unique follicles. And you'll look like the way I'm balding is like different than how like I'm a thinner, like whereas other people like lose on the temples, right? There are a lot of different ways to bald. So if you're human, so the only animal model that's really relevant for us is the stump-tail macaque, which people do test, but it's mostly in China. Yeah, and it's like I think very expensive to run a monkey zoo here. So we actually look at more like human tissue, so human scalp skin, human hair follicles. That's like or if you wanted to mix it, you could do a human xenograft on a mouse's back. That's a good model, but that's also more on the expensive side. Yeah, so just getting into that, so our FDA, so yeah, like we were saying before, our community basically is willing to buy preclinical drugs off Alibaba, make solutions at home, test it at home, and report their data. So that's just getting into how we can drive down the cost of clinical trials. Our NIH, so similar to what we were saying before, like when you have people that are really passionate and smart and know how to scour the internet, you can learn probably just about anything. I think the half-life of medical information is about 18 months. So like I didn't know any biology. Founded HairDAO about 2 years ago, probably started getting into biology like a year before that. I come from a more mechanical engineering background. So yeah, I think you can teach yourself pretty much anything at this point. And yes, like with that, like our community has grown a lot. So we'll probably do over 1 million Discord messages over the next year. Like we only have our Discord was hacked in May, like literally hacked to zero. And we had a lot of people then, but we've actually like grown past that. So we have like 800 verified members right now. So just going what we were talking about before, so kind of all of the digital stuff to us is a tool. So the crypto side's a tool to incentivize people. We have HairGPT trademarked. We basically have a product built on top of OpenAI where you can just query any research paper. The patient portal, that's where you'd upload your patient data that you generate while taking treatments, and then we do some computational biology stuff too. And all of that digital stuff has sort of materialized into a product that we actually just leaked last night. It's called Ready Player One, so it's basically like our video game or our social game, but basically just how we're trying to gamify all of the research that everyone's doing in the community. And yeah, the goal with all of the digital stuff we do is to bring new treatments to market, and we're actually doing that right now. So our first study was at the University of Miami with a professor named Ralph Paus. We basically found that these two very frequently prescribed oral drugs, so over 100 million people take either T3 or T4 a year for hypothyroidism. That's when you have like low thyroid serum levels. But yeah, we're the first people to use it topically. Yeah, for I think any dermatological condition, but definitely for hair loss. So figuring out setting up the supply chain for that right now. So if you have any experience as either a data broker or a FDA regulatory consultant, please let me know. And yeah, we want you to join the Hair Force. That's it. Any questions?
How many people do you get involved in the Discord, in the general discussion, and the funding that don't experience HAPs?
Great question. Definitely very low. Like, funny enough, the researcher at UMiami that we did our first study with, who's the most cited hair loss researcher in the world, by like 3x just in citations, he has great hair in his 60s. But that's the traditional side. Like I think if you go into the decentralized side, it's all people losing their hair pretty much.
It's interesting, it's that patient-led care sort of thing, the patient-led.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to ask the same question, but I'm not interested in what percentage of people it worked on. I'm interested how well the treatments that you mentioned, that 20, 40, and 80% works. How well does it work?
Oh, so like finasteride works really, really well. Like you will regrow your hair. Like Ashton Kutcher was on dutasteride, which is like just a stronger version of that for like 20 years. His hair looks great. I think he just stopped, so he's starting to lose it. But yeah, that stuff definitely works. Rogaine minoxidil doesn't work that well, but yeah.
In the first time you grow your hair to what you were at 20 years old?
No, but you won't lose anymore. And it honestly depends on the patient. Like you won't, obviously like our community, it didn't work that well. Either they probably had side effects or they didn't have the regrowth. But you won't lose any. It works for about 5 to 10 years, and then your cells become adaptive to the environment that's created, so it actually stops working pretty much for everybody after 5 to 10 years. But yeah, finasteride works very well for 5 to 10 years for most people. If you, yeah.
After 10 years, there's nothing that works for you folks now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hair transplant. Those last like 4 years before you start to lose the hair that was transplanted, which is about like one hair cycle. So after the hair cycle's out, then yeah, the new one comes in.
I was wondering, like, about the question: if so many people are willing to pay for hair and get things that help hair loss, then it's like, why isn't there more research in pharma and science? Because it's not current.
Yes. So, like taking that 5 million a year number, they're like singular Alzheimer's or cancer labs that get that much. So, yeah, like if you're, I think historically, if you're just the best traditional scientist, right, you're not going into hair. You're going where the money is. And so if you don't go where like if there's no money at the early stage, then there's a lot less to commercialize also. Funny enough, like most of the funding the past like 5 years has been into stem cell companies that are doing hair loss. But other than those, like it's really not much at all.
Do you see a product down the road in your roadmap, and if so, how do you think about like pharmaceutical versus something that's more like consumer driven or cosmetic?
Yeah. So the T3, T4 product I'm trying to bring up now. So would love to chat if you have ideas. I've been talking to a lot of people, but it's like our goal, frankly, is to bring it to market at the lowest possible cost. So like some people tell you, oh, you need an IND. Some people tell you, oh, you can do it this way, but then you're a data broker. Like everyone kind of has their own spin. I think like personally, like I would be on board for us to get like a chief compliance officer on board, just because like I don't personally want to. It's just like a lot to deal with lawyers and run product and research and stuff. But yeah, yeah.
On the BUC, so Ramesh mentioned a little bit about the issues of like people fabricating data because there's money involved. Like, have you seen any of that, or is it do you have a strong community that you don't expect that?
That's honestly an amazing question. So we have like a social graph. So it's basically like you have your reputation in the community, and then also we're going to enable people to stake their hair on their data. So basically, if you like lie or break an NDA or something, we slash the hair that you staked, and we reward the person who reported it, and then we also reward the DAO with the slash. Yeah.
Can you call it a haircut?
Yeah. So we already have haircuts. That's haircuts is our like quarterly research magazine, but we'll think of something. Yeah.
I've heard like some stories that people saying people lose hair like due to stress or some other like health conditions. In terms of like alternative verticals, like those people like searching cancer for hair or something, is there like something in HairDAO that considers that? It's like everyone uploads their face and it's like you can like, oh, it's like you're losing 5% more hair than one expects. You know, maybe you should talk to somebody about, you know, your life choices or something. Like.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've been trying to think how to make the app or the website we just launched last night like more addictive, and like something like that where like you take a picture and like it tells you maybe something like, oh, like this is how much longer you have till your hair falls out. Like, you know, I don't know what's like if you could take that to the max, but yeah, no, that something like that could be really cool. Yeah, for sure.
Great talk. You know, something I've seen as a huge potential for DeSci is its ability to further corroborate through a bottom-up way traditional medicine. So I'm interested to hear from you. What from your community has your community stated like that actually works? Not finasteride, not minoxidil, rosemary, for example. You know, are you guys investigating that? Is the community more inclined to investigate these types of homeopathic treatments rather than pharmaceutical drugs?
Yeah, great question. I think so on the natural side, there's some things that might work a little bit for some people, but like actually topical melatonin is like about to have a lot of papers released on it. Yeah, a little scoop there, I guess. Sleep deprived, but but yeah, other than melatonin, I haven't really seen anything natural. Like rosemary has there's some with some papers, but like nothing too great. And I think also a lot of like I've tried them. Like if you're losing your hair, like they don't. At least for me, like they don't work. They didn't work. Where our community tends to go is like actually more like still the drug route. So like there's this one drug called RU58841, which you might have heard about, which never made it past phase 2, like in the early 2000s. But it is a hair loss drug that like more plates, more dates. If you know that YouTube influencer, he took it for a while. There are a few other like preclinical ones that people are ordering right now. But so we tend to go more like the research use only side than the homeopathic side. Yeah, thanks guys.